it is withholding information that parents in particular need in order to make decisions for their kids.
Also tonight, a former director of the Duval County Health Department now says the state is losing trust among parents about keeping them informed about COVID-19 in schools. Plans to publish the number of cases online were stopped once the county health department said Duval County Public Schools needed permission from the state. But one pediatrician we spoke to tonight says parents are being left in the dark. On Your Side's Robert Bradfield reports on what some say is a parent's right to know versus someone else's right to privacy.
Concern over COVID-19 reporting results has the former director of the Duval County Health Department empathizing with parents.
Parents have a right to know the environment that they're sending their children into.
Dr. Jeff Goldhagen says that includes knowing if any students or staff have tested positive for COVID-19. While there are laws shielding the release of people's names, he says reporting results can be done in a way that keeps identities confidential.
There are not necessarily right decisions or wrong decisions. There are informed decisions. And parents have the need and the right to have the information required to make those informed decisions.
A spokesperson for Duval County Public Schools says the district is working with the state to get permission to post COVID-19 numbers, as other counties in the state have already begun posting their own, including Volusia County, which reversed course and will now post updates twice a week. Duval Superintendent Dr. Diana Green says the district has about 15 to 17 positive cases. Dr. Goldhagen believes the state health department has an obligation to report those cases to parents and school boards, and by not doing so, puts counties at greater risk.
With what we're seeing unfolding, it's impacting us in multiple ways, one of which is it does not engender trust in the health department, that in fact it has our best interests at heart.
DCPS says there is no time frame when its dashboard will be up and running again. Robert Bradfield, First Coast News, on your side.